Because I don't just want to be a good man. I want to be a good human. And I believe the only way that can happen.
Blake Lively's lawsuit is rapidly unraveling, and her latest move may have pushed the situation into full-blown disaster. What she seemed to believe would be her smoking gun. A supposed birth video scandal has instead been widely interpreted as a desperate attempt to revive a collapsing case. Lively has filed yet another motion for sanctions, reportedly her 7th or 8th, this time targeting producer Jaime Heath, who works with Justin Baldoni's Wayfarer Studios. She claims Jaime once showed her a short clip of his wife Natasha's home birth on set, describing it as graphic, pornographic, and deeply inappropriate. But there's a major twist. The video in question was already turned over during discovery, and it looks nothing like her description. Wayfarer's legal team confirmed that what they submitted is a 3-minute, fully censored recording of a private, emotional home birth carefully edited to protect privacy. There is nothing sexual, nothing indecent, and nothing that supports the allegations she built around it. So why is Blake fighting so fiercely over a video that proves none of what she claims? According to insiders, she has nearly run out of legal maneuvers, and this latest motion resembles a last-ditch effort to manipulate public perception, cast herself as a victim, and paint Baldoni's team as villains. But the strategy appears to be backfiring. She's now asking the court to punish Jaime Heath for supposedly refusing to provide the full birth video, even though the censored clip was delivered weeks ago exactly as ordered. She insists the footage she remembers was longer, more graphic, and crucial to proving harassment, turning her memory into a battleground to keep the case alive. Legal analysts note that this is a familiar tactic when a case is failing: create confusion, turn settled facts into disputed recollections, and manufacture complications that could force a jury trial instead of an outright dismissal. By claiming the video isn't the one she saw, she attempts to shift a legal question into an emotional conflict, buying time and clouding the record. But it still isn't working. Court filings indicate she may have sued the wrong employer, failed to file a proper EEOC complaint, never obtained a right to sue letter, and may have filed in the wrong state altogether. Instead of owning the procedural failures weakening her lawsuit, she is reframing the situation as a cover-up. Evidence was hidden, facts were manipulated, and she's losing not because of the law, but because others supposedly sabotaged her. Meanwhile, real people are being dragged into the chaos. Jaime Heath and his wife Natasha, who isn't a public figure but a professional dancer and postpartum care worker, shared a deeply personal moment in the birth of their child. That private experience has now become ammunition in Blake Lively's escalating legal battle. She is demanding every version of the footage, arguing it is essential to proving her claims. In reality, she is effectively requesting access to a private, vulnerable video of another woman's nude body to present to a jury. Her filings go further, reportedly belittling the Heaths by labeling the footage as pornographic and stripping it of its emotional meaning and dignity. What was supposed to be a groundbreaking piece of evidence has instead exposed the increasingly desperate, ethically questionable direction of Blake's case, rather than strengthening her position. This motion has sparked widespread criticism and underscored the lengths she seems willing to go to manipulate the narrative and complicate the legal process. It's a high-risk gamble, and with the lawsuit already standing on unstable ground, this latest attempt may be the move that costs her everything legally, publicly, and professionally. At this point, her strategy resembles less a legitimate pursuit of justice and more a calculated spectacle, turning private lives into collateral damage for the sake of a failing lawsuit. For Natasha Heath, the ordeal is not just a legal matter, it is a deeply personal violation. The intimate home birth video she shared only with her husband has now been pulled into a tabloid-style storyline by one of Hollywood's most recognizable actresses. Lively claims Jaime forced the clip on her without warning, but Wayfarer's filings paint a very different picture entirely. According to filings and accounts from those involved, the video was shown strictly within the context of a creative discussion for a childbirth scene. What was once a private, emotional family moment has now become part of a legal dispute, leaving Natasha feeling exposed and deeply uncomfortable, a situation no one should have to endure. At this stage, the lawsuit appears to have shifted from a pursuit of justice to a struggle for narrative control. Blake's case, as described in court documents and by legal observers, has been weakened by procedural issues, questions about jurisdiction, concerns about whether the correct employer was sued, and the absence of a completed EEOC process. Rather than confronting these foundational problems, critics argue that her legal filings have taken on the tone of public performance, each new motion, each dramatic claim, each emotional appeal seeming designed as much for public consumption as for the court. Sources connected to the case claim that her team has strategically used these filings to generate headlines and frame Justin Baldoni's side as uncooperative or malicious. Yet the documents submitted to the court reportedly reflect a different story. The evidence, including the censored childbirth clip, has been produced, reviewed, and logged, and so far it has not substantiated the allegations Blake described. As she continues to seek sanctions and submit new motions, observers note that the approach is beginning to draw skepticism. Industry insiders and fans alike are questioning whether these maneuvers are legal strategies or attempts to control public perception. In Hollywood, sympathy tends to shift quickly, especially when private moments, particularly another woman's motherhood and vulnerability, become part of a public battle. In contrast, Baldoni's team has presented itself as measured and methodical. Court filings indicate that Wayfarer Studios has complied fully with discovery requirements, submitting the birth video weeks earlier along with documents, messages, and deposition testimony. Their legal responses have emphasized clarity. All required materials have been provided, and no additional footage exists. This directly challenges Blake's position, because without evidence of a second different video, her request for sanctions loses its foundation. Insiders suggest Baldoni's side is preparing to seek summary judgment, a move that allows the judge to dismiss a case when the claims are not supported by evidence. The divide between the two approaches is stark. While Blake's filings often carry emotional weight and public visibility, Justin's side continues to rely on documentation, consistency, and calm legal process. Ultimately, the ongoing dispute highlights the risks of turning legal matters into public narratives. Attempts to shape perception may gain temporary attention, but they cannot replace the standards required in court. Meanwhile, people like Natasha Heath, who was never a public figure and never sought the spotlight, find their most intimate experiences drawn into a conflict far beyond their control. As events continue to unfold, the case stands as a reminder that media attention, dramatic storytelling, and public sympathy cannot override facts, evidence, and procedure. Blake's narrative may circulate widely online, but inside the courtroom, the outcome will depend solely on what can be proven. Quietly, Hollywood insiders are beginning to pay closer attention to the unfolding Blake Lively situation, and the sentiment, at least according to industry chatter, is far from favorable. Justin Baldoni, once criticized for staying silent, is now being praised by some observers for maintaining composure and refusing to engage in the theatrics that have surrounded the case. While one side is loudly invoking victimhood, the other is methodically presenting documents and testimony, reinforcing the idea that consistency and evidence tend to outweigh noise. Reports circulating among producers, publicists, and entertainment lawyers suggest that even some of Blake's former allies have begun distancing themselves, noting contradictions in her filings and what they view as a pattern of repeated, dramatic motions. As one entertainment lawyer described it, "You can't keep sounding the alarm when the evidence doesn't match." For many in the industry, this marks a significant shift for Blake, whose long-standing Golden Girl reputation now faces unprecedented scrutiny. What began as a lawsuit framed in the style of a mature workplace complaint has, in the eyes of critics, morphed into a cautionary tale about narrative control, personal conflict, and the risks of public legal strategies. Blake's allegations have not only focused on Justin Baldoni, but have also pulled in Jaime and Natasha Heath, a private family whose personal moments became part of the dispute. Natasha's home birth video, meant to be an intimate family memory, is now being discussed in legal filings, a development that has drawn strong reactions online. Fans and commentators are increasingly asking the same questions. Why does the narrative keep shifting? Why was another woman's private moment brought into a public lawsuit? Why do the legal filings feel crafted for headlines? The more these questions circulate, the more Blake appears, in the eyes of critics, isolated and struggling to maintain control of the story. Meanwhile, Baldoni's team continues to present itself as calm, consistent, and focused solely on what can be documented. Court filings indicate that Wayfarer Studios has complied with all discovery requirements, providing the censored 3-minute home birth clip, documents, messages, and sworn testimony. Their procedural approach stands in stark contrast to Blake's more dramatic filings and has been noted by legal analysts as strengthening their position. These filings also clarify a key point. The video at the center of Blake's motion for sanctions is not the incriminating footage she described, but a censored, emotional, family birth clip, without evidence of another version of the video. The basis of her sanctions request weakens significantly. Analysts warn that persistent filings without supporting evidence could potentially harm her credibility and risk frustrating the court. The wider effect, according to industry observers, is a shift in how both parties are viewed. Baldoni is increasingly seen as steady and responsible, while Blake's approach is viewed more critically. Hollywood is known for its willingness to forgive mistakes, but intentional cruelty or appearing to leverage someone else's private life tends to leave a lasting mark. Her long-cultivated image is now vulnerable not because of anyone else's actions, critics argue, but because of how she has chosen to navigate this dispute. Each new filing that leans into narrative drama rather than substantiated facts seems to further erode public trust. What began as a legal conflict has evolved into a broader test of credibility and reputation. The contrast between a measured, evidence-first defense and a highly emotional, media-driven strategy has become stark as matters continue to unfold. Many wonder whether Blake's legal and public maneuvering has reached its limit, or whether she has yet another strategy waiting, whatever happens next. The impact on her public image and her professional future may be just as significant as any courtroom outcome. For now, the spotlight has shifted, placing the